Hello, everybody, and welcome to Planet FPL, the world where everything revolves around fantasy. Why are you laughing at me? We need to do
I'm
that one
laughing
again.
because one, because I was moving the screen. It's like, oh shit, I don't like the position. Two, where's this new Clayton and James show
I
intro,
could,
mate?
I couldn't think of one. That I don't
Right, get
know.
on it. The patrons are really vexed with you. Sort it
Is it?
out. Yeah, yeah, it's proper rage ball stuff, mate. We want to get you out of the Planet FPL sphere,
What do you
mate. If
mean?
you don't
Like a
sort this
jingle,
out,
as in like I've got to sing? Or
no, just come up with a proper intro for this podcast, mate, so
all
we
right,
can separate ourselves from Suj and hopefully
okay.
make a proper career and life for ourselves without it.
All right, I will do. All right. How do we do this again? Do I do a clap or anything?
No, no, no. I ain't restarting this
Oh,
shit.
for
That's the
fuck's
start of the
sake!
podcast, mate. Right. Welcome to the Clayton and James show, everyone. A few different topics we're going to be covering off today. We're going to have a look at Lee Carsley's first England squad. We had a few people pull out last night. Stop laughing at the back. We're going to be talking Crisis Club. You can probably guess who we're going to talk about based on my particular opinions on Monday's podcast. I'm keen to get Clayton's opinion on Manchester United. We're going to have a look at some of the transfers incoming to the Premier League and between Premier League clubs that went through on Friday's deadline day and what their potential impact is to fantasy. Because I don't think we covered that too much on Monday's podcast. And then we'll finish off with an on this day from September the 4th, which I'd say you, Clayton, is from 2016. But first, major Premier League headline last night. I will put this in context for you and tell you no Premier League club will have a better result this season.
Yeah, and I saw on Slack, I agree with the comment. This will probably be Leicester's best result this season as well, unfortunately for them, but also fortunately for them.
Well, it's going to be the best result of any Premier League club all season.
You,
To put this into context, at Leicester City, obviously, based on the statements that were released by Leicester and the Premier League last night, are not going to get a points deduction. This is something we've been expecting since Leicester were relegated. And you might remember my conversation with Aaron Lager from Correspondent Week, where I was saying, like, look, this is getting really unfair, actually, on Leicester, that we still don't know for a punishment that was meant to be from 2 years ago. We now understand why Leicester have not been given a points deduction because they're not going to be given one. The context, I'll come on to why they're not going to get one now. But the context is basically that over the 3 year period where you can have losses of up to 105 million against profit and sustainability reporting, they were basically, I think it's 24.4 million over. Based on the points deductions given to Everton and Nottingham Forest last year, it probably would have been reasonable to expect that Leicester would have been looking at around about a 7 point deduction.
got it.
They're now not getting that. They've just won two football matches and drawn a game
So my
overnight.
obvious question is why? What's the difference between them and Everton?
There's none. This is for Everton and Forest fans who've not heard yet and about to hear for the first time what's happened. You're about to go batshit crazy because those two clubs feel like they've been victimised by the Premier League already. They're about to feel even more so because what Leicester had done in terms of their failure, whether you agree or disagree with PSR, their failure to meet that, stay within that 105 million threshold is clear. They were charged in March with this, dating back to the 3 year period that ended the year that they got relegated. Leicester are going to get off because of a technicality in the written words of the Premier League's own rules.
Go on, what is it?
Well, essentially, um, at the period that obviously they're charged, a 3 year period, they've been relegated. And as not being a Premier League club at that point, you cannot charge them.
Okay.
Leicester specifically say in their statement that in fairness of the Premier League's own rules, we have to abide by what is written by the Premier League's own rules.
So is that like a loophole then, do you think?
Yes.
Yeah. Because the way I've interpreted that is, let's just say, I don't want to pick any team that will go down, but for the sake of an argument, let's just use my own club so then I don't annoy anyone. Let's just say Arsenal were to spend batshit in January, but then get relegated. Would Arsenal then be exempt from
Yeah.
PSR?
We're in a position here where hypothetical based on the Premier League's rules, which are clearly going to be rewritten. But the handbook's obviously already gone out for this season, which all the Premier League clubs will have. And I'm going to guess it hasn't been rewritten for this season. In effect, let's use a more realistic example here, where let's say Leicester are struggling again and they decide to go, we're definitely getting relegated here. Let's go and spend 100 million. And well, we can't get done on PSR anyway. They won't get done.
That is mental.
Of course it is. If people didn't think that PSR was up the shitter already, you've now got an imbalance within the own rules for the Premier League clubs, where actually for a club getting relegated, there would be an advantage here to go batshit if you want to. I would suggest against it because you're going to get relegated to the Championship, and then if you don't come back, it's not a good look. But yeah, how much of an anomaly is that? And it's all because of the written word.
I guess to play devil's advocate, if Leicester didn't go down, if they did stay up and they maintained themselves as a sustainable Premier League football club, they would have got done, right?
Had they not been relegated, yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, I
So
mean they would have been getting points deductions last season. They didn't get points deductions last season because obviously they were in the Championship.
yeah, so yeah, I can't really play devil's advocate. I was trying to see a different perspective on why yeah, I can't really.
And
That's
the EFL, I think, wanted Leicester to have the punishment last season. But again, it was to come back to Premier League jurisdiction. Nick DeMarco KC, who is one of the leading sports lawyers, has pulled off the best result that anybody could pull off all this season. He has found a loophole in the Premier League's rules wording, and because it's in the Premier League's own words, I don't think they've got a leg to stand on here to try and get this changed and get Leicester the points deduction, which, again, whether you think they deserve it or they don't, certainly Everton and Nottingham Forest had it last season. So on that basis and the current rules, Leicester should be having a points deduction. The 7 point number is a speculation, but I think it would be close to that. It would be near enough around that.
well, and I think yeah, I personally think Leicester will be in a relegation battle just purely on what I've seen on the pitch. So that 7 points is a huge number if that's what we're going with.
Well, what we're talking about here is that, and I actually looked at this yesterday morning, they were odds on favourites to finish like bottom of the league. But part of that is the expectation that they would be getting a points deduction. So I haven't looked yet this morning. I think the bookies will play it smart for the moment in case something changes and they could still get it, but that looks really unlikely.
How do you think Everton and Forest fans will be feeling?
You'd be going, I get the anger massively.
Yeah. And what can you even say to them
because the Premier League has punished you, and therefore the Premier League should punish Leicester. And because of the Premier League's own wording of failings, it's in a weird, it's kind of like discrimination. Oh, yeah. They got relegated, so it's all right, and you hung around, so you've been discriminated against a little bit. It's incredible. A complete abject failure from the Premier League. And whoever wrote that is probably might be out of a job, unfortunately.
Yeah,
it's incredible that their own rulings have tripped them up.
Yeah, it's just like that's just schoolboy errors, isn't it? Like, how is that not sense checked, foolproof? That
I bet it was. Have you ever read through the Premier League handbook? Yeah,
there's a reason.
There's a reason why no one else. Why has none of the rest of us spotted this up until now?
Well, it's not jobs, right? You'll have lawyers that are paid to go and do.
Yeah, but the handbook and its rules are so bloody long, mate.
Yeah, but still, there's people that are paid to go and do that.
Well, DeMarco's pulled off something incredible here for Leicester, and that gives them a much bigger opportunity now to stay up, and it's going to tank the season.
Yeah,
if they do, because there's no doubt that they should be getting a points deduction.
Do you think there'll be protests or
I don't know what anyone can do.
Everton or
it's in the rules.
Yeah,
it's in the rules that it don't apply if you're not a Premier League club. So I don't. And the Premier League put a statement out last night and said clearly this wasn't the intention, but it's your own words. And so Leicester have gone, well, that's what you've written. So it is a loophole. It's no different to the Chelsea selling the hotels and all that kind of stuff, right? But this is actually via the Premier League's rules. that Leicester have got off on a technicality when Everton and Nottingham Forest were punished last year.
I do.
Now, what could be even worse is we think that all the clubs passed in the summer. So for this last 3 year period that ends, we don't factually know that yet. We know there were sort of 6 or 7 clubs that were close to, and Leicester would have been one of them, by the way. Now, I presume if Leicester have failed, they would still get a points deduction this season based on that. But let's just say, different example, let's say Everton have failed again. Everton will get a points deduction this season, and Leicester won't. We won't know any of this till the winter period, sort of December, January.
There's an element of me that thinks this sets a very dangerous precedent going forward as well. Like there will be a couple of clubs that will think they can chance it, and I know you said it will get rewritten and stuff, but I don't know when that will come into
But
play.
then also, based on these rules, let's say Everton have failed. And again, we don't think they have, but let's say they have failed again. But you can't go, well, Leicester have got off, we'll let you off as well. Well, actually, no, your same rules determines that they should be punished.
Yeah.
It's an incredible situation. And Leicester fans should be absolutely delighted. Lucky, but should be absolutely delighted. It gives a real imbalance. I mean, if anyone else gets points deductions this season, you should almost, I feel like, come out and make a statement, because I think these clubs, whether they did meet it or didn't, your Newcastles, your Villas, Leicester, Everton, Nottingham Forest, and there's one other that's escaping me at the moment who there was a little bit of concern at Chelsea. There was a little bit of concern about. They've all clearly tried to manage the situation from a PSR perspective. You'd almost be better off coming out and saying, because in light of these events with Leicester City, we're just going to rip it up this year. Almost feels better.
Do you think? I think that's a little bit far-fetched.
If Everton get a points deduction now again this season off the back of this, and Leicester City don't, when Leicester City clearly failed, Everton were punished twice this year, could be punished again this year. Yeah, you could understand why that feels really uncomfortable.
Yeah, when I say it's far-fetched, I was working on the assumption I don't think Everton will get penalised, but
No, as I said, we think all the clubs have passed,
yeah,
but we've also seen clubs think that they've passed previously, and then the Premier League gone, actually, no, you can't include that 20 million because.
yeah. The only reason I say scrapping it now wouldn't make sense for me is just I think every team would have had a transfer strategy with that in mind in the summer, and things will go different. The January market's always quite tough to operate in. So I think it's something that is a monumental cock up, but like rewrite it. Hopefully no teams get penalized this season and then kind of sort it for next season, in my opinion.
This is so bad.
It's awful.
It's a really big headline. If this was Chelsea in this situation rather than Leicester, it would be like night and day, the news story. I almost have a will for Leicester to go down now. Not because I've got anything against them. I just don't want to see that at the end of the year where they've stayed up by a couple of points when the Premier League should have dot some points. Or I hope they stay up by like 15 points, right?
Yeah, yeah.
It doesn't matter.
Yeah. You hope they either go down because footballing wise, they're one of the three worst teams, or they stay up comfortably because they deserve it. Yeah.
Points deduction is worth saying. It's not like I'm sitting here going, I want less deducted points. I feel very uncomfortable with points deductions, really uncomfortable about it anyway. This will be the last year of PSR.
Do you think? Yeah.
That was a given, I think, even before this anyway, because all the Premier League clubs want it changed. And there's a question I'd like to ask you when we get to some of the transfers. There's a trivia question I got for you as well, which is quite interesting.
As you know, I'm very good at trivia.
What do I think will happen? It will come more in line with UEFA's rulings in terms of expenditure on wages per turnover and stuff like that. That's almost certainly what it's going to change towards. There was hope in the summer they were going to change it to this 5-tier structure where you could spend like 5 times more on salaries rather against the team that finishes bottom. So let's say Leicester finish bottom, they earn 105 million via TV money. Then Manchester City, if they finish top, in theory, could spend 5 times that, so like 525. But that got pushed back because you were potentially denying people to earn the maximum on their salaries. The PFA had kicked up a fuss about it, protecting the players' union. The financial situation of Premier League football feels as big a mess now than it ever has in terms of complying with laws. I don't think the Premier League even like their own laws.
Hmm.
So let's hope that we're sitting here in 12 months' time, we're working towards something that's more sustainable for everybody. Because it is also about protecting. I know the situations of Portsmouth and Wham to Leeds and stuff are rare, but I think to go back to Everton, Everton fans could tell you that it's probably better for them that this is in place in a weird way, because it stopped their manager, their owner, putting them in a situation that became really precarious financially.
If I'm being honest, when I first read up about PSR, and I think you explained it to me actually on a podcast, and the 500 million losses allowed over 3 years, I thought it was manageable.
105.
Yeah. Was it not 105?
Yeah, sorry, I thought you said 500.
No, 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 105. Yeah, when you first explained it to me, I thought, okay, like, yeah, it will affect how teams
Is
deal
it?
in the market.
Declan Rice costs 105.
Yeah, but it's over X amount of years, X, Y, Z. Like, it's not 105 in one lump sum, is it? Like, sure, I think most teams would love what team doesn't love to spend more money, but I didn't think it was outrageously bad when it first came in. I think it's the implementation of it that's been inconsistent. But
There's a balance here, right? Because I think one of the arguments put forward is that Newcastle's a good case, right? We haven't bought anyone this summer. And part of that's compliance with PSR, and you know that they want to go and spend, but they should be allowed to spend. But then for everyone else, once you do have 5, 10 years of spending, you're all going to be moaning about it. Oh, they're spending more than everybody else in the same way people have moaned about City. So, like, we want some balance where I think you don't want to hold them back necessarily, Newcastle, but you also don't want them to go into a position where no one compete again. And reality is, who wants it where Manchester City will spend X amount of money more than anyone else? Who have Man City signed this summer?
yeah, no one. Like Savio, that was it, I think.
We'll come back onto this.
Is it? Was it?
Um,
Yeah, I can't even
I'm
remember who
pretty
City
sure
got.
me and Suj will cover this Leicester story in more detail on Patreon over the coming weeks as well. Congratulations to Nick DeMarco, who every time a football club needs a lawyer now is
Yeah,
just, yeah, it's incredible.
he's set for life. Should we
He's
do the England squad?
he's a QPR fan for anyone who wants to know. So if QPR ever come up, he'll look after them.
England squad, shall we?
Yes.
I don't think we've spoken about Lee Carsley since he got appointed.
No.
What's quick couple minutes on your thoughts on him as the manager?
Um, I think he will be the permanent manager. I think that decision has possibly already been made. And I think they're giving him the interim for a couple of fixtures that England should win with respect to the opponents coming up. There's an opportunity there that people have a look at it. Ah, this is all right. And you've adjusted your mindset to it rather than just coming off the back of the tournament and on Lee Carsley's who you chose. We spoke about this previously that everybody who's seen Lee Carsley's England under 21 says what good football they play.
I watched a lot of that tournament they won. Yeah, really impressive stuff.
That's a recurring theme. I watched a lot of that as well. You had like Morgan Gibbs White and Anthony Gordon, basically both playing as kind of like tens, false nines, fullbacks who can move into midfield. James Garner played right back in that team a lot, for example. Um, so a brand of football that people I think will enjoy more. And this is it. If people see it and enjoy it, might go, oh, that's all right. Because I think we'd have to, if the choice was say Potter, why have they not gone there? It's nothing in the way particularly. If it was Eddie Howe that they really wanted, I think they could probably go there. And I think there may even be an acceptance from Newcastle at this moment to say, go. Not from the fans, I should clarify,
Yeah,
but from
yeah.
possibly the football club to just change.
The rumors sound like there's potentially some disagreements behind the scenes there, isn't it?
And unless they were generally waiting for like Klopp next summer or something, or Guardiola after Man City's 115 and he storms out next April kind of gig, because that's what he's promised he'll do. Um, that's unless they're waiting for a massive name next summer. I don't know why you've chosen to go down this route because I think the English candidates were gettable. Even
Well,
someone like Maurizio Pochettino was gettable if that's what they'd have chosen.
yeah, well, maybe they looked at how well it worked with Southgate, and I did have an article up earlier, but I can't find it now. There are a couple of other managers that followed the same path of being the youth manager and then going to the full men's team. So maybe it's something they just looked at it worked well with Southgate. Carsley plays, like you say, a nice brand of football from what we've seen with the under 23s or 21s, whatever it was. And yeah, maybe they just want to stick on that consistent path.
Well, Southgate had this path, didn't it?
Yeah,
And Southgate also was given the job, I think, despite an unspectacular interim period in charge, where England nearly lost in
can't really remember his interim period,
nearly
to be
lost in
honest.
Slovenia. They beat Scotland fairly comfortably in a qualifier. I think it was a draw with Spain in a friendly and a victory against Malta, you would expect in a qualifier. But I think there was like months of Southgate's doing it. Okay, let him carry on. Plus, it was on the floor so much after 2016.
I wonder if there's the element as well. It's like if you look at that England squad that finished the Euros in the summer, there's a lot of them that, not a lot, there's a handful of them that will probably get phased out over the next two tournaments. And I wonder if Lee Carsley being familiar with the younger group, bringing them into the men's first team. Like if you look at some of the inclusions in this squad, there's a lot, well, again, a handful that have come from the team that he's familiar with, right?
Yeah, let's cover some of those names. Some have featured for the full squad already, such as Rico Lewis. Um, if Rico Lewis was to keep his place in the Manchester City team, he's going to get in this squad. Particularly, you know, he can play from right or left back, and England clearly have a left back problem. In fact, you only have to look at this squad again. Luke Shaw, obviously unfit. No call up for the likes of a Tyreek Mitchell. I think Rico Henry is a name to keep an eye on the next 12 months if he can prove his fitness and get back to his best at Brentford. Ben Chilwell is in complete limbo at the moment. We think he might be joining the club in Turkey on loan, possibly because that window's still open. But if he doesn't, he's not going to play football for the next 4 months. And Southgate seemed to kind of never really fancy it as an option either. So there's no natural left back in the squad still. Few names missing out that'd be familiar. Cole Walker one, obviously. He hasn't announced an international retirement, although Kieran Trippier has. But it would make sense. I think Cole Walker doesn't need to play in fixtures like this. I mean, Cole Walker hasn't even played for Manchester City yet this season, so he probably shouldn't be a part of this anyway. Tino Livramento was a player we mentioned in March that we thought might be something that got looked at to cover that left back problem. He could play that side as well.
Yeah,
It's worth noting. Further up the pitch, Morgan Gibbs White was so instrumental to that under 21 winning team. Arguably the standout player in that team. I always felt that whoever was in charge, he was going to get into a squad this year. I like him as a call up. I think he'll look really good in a side that's quite aggressive off the ball.
yeah, big time. He's very front-footed, isn't he?
And I don't think he always gets the opportunity to do that playing for Nottingham Forest. I think he's got a ceiling of improvement that we could definitely see, whether that's with Forest or in another club in the future.
Yeah, me too.
Angel Gomez was also part of that under 21 team, was a name that you and I mentioned in March
We did, yeah.
when we were looking at players to solve the midfield conundrum problem that England had. Has obviously played a lot for Lille. We spoke then about him playing multiple midfield positions. He's going to get a look in this squad. And Noni Madueke with the first call up. I don't know if there was an influence of this being announced shortly after the hat trick against Wolves, but you got a young English talent who's obviously hit a bit of form. Go and have a look at him. And actually, when you look at the right hand side of this particular squad, perhaps with even more so now with Phil Foden pulling out, you could say, right, there's Saka, Bowen. Okay, yeah, have a look at Madueke.
Who are
That's
the games
absolutely
again
fine.
against again? Ireland and God, sorry, I put you on the
Ireland's
spot there.
Saturday, isn't it? It's Finland or Greece
Okay.
on Tuesday,
Yeah,
or
so
one or the other.
they're the opposition where you can
I think
really
it's
have a nice,
Finland. I think
yeah, but it's the type of opposition you can have a nice look at some of these.
that sums it up.
Yeah,
That's where my interest in international football is at this moment in time. I'm not even sure England are playing this
yeah,
week.
same. Well, this
Um,
Saturday is Ireland, but yeah, next week I've got no clue.
Listen, don't want to lose to Ireland at the weekend, clearly. And we're in League B of this Nations League period. So clearly we want to get back out of that because playing that and actually having a game like Ireland is good. I'd rather play Ireland than some of the other teams because there'll be a competitive edge to the game, which is great. But England need to go back to playing regularly the sides that are at the top level to learn and improve for it. And also even for our own sanity around international breaks. 3 games in, the Premier League just feels like it started and you want to You want to make me wait 2 weeks for the North London derby,
Yeah, it's
which is a hard enough build up as it is, and you've made it a 2 week build up.
I know,
Thanks.
but it just in the flow of like getting back into your club that you love, and it's yeah, I hate international breaks.
One thing does stand out on this squad at the moment. Look, there's a lot of young players in it. Trivia question for you: Who is the third highest scorer in this squad? Harry Kane has 66 goals, Bukayo Saka 12.
Hmm. Ollie, no. Jared
And
Bowen?
and you could have Ollie Watkins, who pulled out last night, along with Cole Palmer and Phil Foden. The answer is Harry Maguire,
Fucking hell.
7. Watkins, Palmer, and Foden have all pulled out of the squad. If you want to know why Foden's pulled out of the squad, you can listen to Clash of the Correspondents and come to your own potential conclusions on that. Clayton's looking at me going, I've not listened to that,
I've
James.
not
Can you?
listened to it yet, Jeff.
Well, that's a bit shit, isn't it? And that's the answer. Cole Palmer turned up and was told to go back.
Oh,
It's a bit concerning.
wait, what?
But it's not like a problem.
Oh,
Like he's obviously got an issue that's injury like not Cole Palmer's been turned up and had the music blaring.
yeah.
You're like, no, you're not allowed. No, Cole Palmer was assessed and told to go back.
Okay.
That could mean anything. Ollie Watkins, I suggest, is obviously, I think Unai Emery's been honest and said that he started this season with a bit of problem. He too obviously reported the same answer. I think it probably come to a conclusion with him that he needs some rest and recuperation is probably. So I think Watkins I probably wouldn't be concerned about. The Palmer one maybe does need watching.
Yeah, one to keep an
Um,
eye on.
of interest because that might be the bit where oh no Cole Palmer for the next few. Okay, what is my excuse not to have Erling Haaland at this stage? If Cole Palmer, if I lose Cole Palmer and Ollie Watkins together at the same time,
You'll still find a way to not get Haaland or Salah.
the thing is I could literally do it just for the -4 then rather than the -8. I would have
Yeah.
to go to like 4.5 midfielder and obviously go from Watkins to Haaland. I could do it, and then I'm an idiot if I don't probably. Okay. Just one more note on the England squad. No Ben White.
Yeah, don't
You read
really
anything
know.
into that? What have you heard?
Well, it's all speculation, isn't it? There's some sides that say he was like a bit of a problematic figure, I think, in training drills and stuff with Southgate's era, and, Steve Holland. And then there's other sides where it says he's not interested, doesn't want to play. I don't know. I've not seen anything that's like concrete that's come out and said this is the reason. But it's a shame because I think he's a profile that England could really do with. I think, in my opinion, he's been the most consistent right back in the league in the last 18 months.
Yeah, well, I think even for England, could use him at centre back.
Yeah, that's the thing. He can play, yeah, centre back, right back. Yeah, I think it's a shame, but I don't really know what the actual reasons are, to be honest. It's just different bits of speculation.
I think one takeaway on this and the squad is as well, and this might prove to be incorrect. I think Trent's going to get a real run at right back now over the next 18 months or so before the next major tournament. Let's hope he does really well in that position. Okay. I was quite strong in some of my wording about Manchester United
You were?
um, on Monday. So I'm going to kind of take a step back and push this one over to you, Clates. You tell me what you think of Crisis Club, current Manchester United.
So, I listened to the main pod, and if let's just say on a scale of 1 to 10, if Suj's view on Man United was a 1 out of 10 and yours was a 10 out of 10, I'm an 8 out of 10. So I am more aligned with you on how I view Man United at the minute. There's lots of different layers to this. I just think Ten Hag, I want, as an Arsenal fan, I want him to stay as manager of Man United as long as he possibly can. I I feel sorry for him in one sense. I think language is clearly like in terms of native speaking a bit of an issue. Like I think he struggles with verbal communication a bit and doesn't come across as assertive as he can as a result, which I kind of empathize with him on that. And I know they've had such bad luck with injuries, but I've not seen this man take any sense of accountability for anything in his period here. Like, while acknowledging all of those factors, I've not seen him once say, like, they're one of the, they are the biggest club in England. we're Man United. Like this is not acceptable. It's always excuse. And I find his press conferences laughable. Like I literally sit there chuckling at them. Like you know how people used to watch Arsenal fan TV for enjoyment,
We still
as
do, just not as often as we used to.
uh, I've never watched Arsenal fan TV. I can't stand them, but I watch that's my Ten Hag interviews for me. I find it hilarious, like the Harry Potter comments. That I don't know if you've seen this clip doing the rounds from the weekend where there was a journalist, I don't know who it was, or a reporter that uh basically asked him his opinion on what was going wrong, and Ten Hag said list them, and he rattled off like a good 6 to 8 very constructive critical bits of play that are wrong with Man United, and Ten Hag just laughs it off and then goes on to the we've won trophies. And this is the thing, like there was a big thing about Man United and the trophy and this and that, and it's great to win a trophy, but your domestic performance over a 38 game week period is more indicative of sustainable success, in my opinion, in terms of where your football club is headed. I did not look at Man United winning the FA Cup and think, oh my God, yeah, they're going to be a threat this year. And again, you have to say, like, they've got, so to what Sud was saying, they've got Agate to come in, De Ligt and Martinez have a partnership to form. I get all of that. I just don't think he is a manager that is capable of coaching players to a level that Man United want to get to. And I think behind the scenes, they've made some really good moves in the boardroom. And I think long term, that will pay dividends. I think he is a laughing stock of a manager, if I'm being honest. I do not rate him at all. And I think it's the sense of I've not seen him take accountability for anything
Well,
once in his period here.
if I was 10 out of 10 and you rate out, I never called him a laughing stock, Clates.
Yeah, okay, maybe I'm 11 out of 10. I think he's a joke, honestly. Yeah.
I don't. There's got to be something there, but I keep holding on to the Ajax team. How did he get that team to play so well and win in Turin and batter Real Madrid in the Bernabeu?
Yeah.
They won 4-1 in a knockout game away to Real Madrid. They were way better than my team over the semi-final. Second leg was a bit mental. In the first leg, we got out alive, only lost 1-0 at home, right? Really, really good football team. But within that as well, there's also that second leg. How were they 3-0 up against my team with no Harry Kane and not go through?
Mm.
And even that sums it up. Yeah, there was something there. I never felt about this Man United team the way I felt about that Ajax team. So I think obviously defensively last year was a shambles. It's worth looking at this opening period of these games so far and at least say, even just from a simple metric as shots conceded, there are improvements. Yet part of those improvements, they feel weaker offensively.
Yeah.
And I realise the main number 9 is not playing at the moment in Rasmus Højlund. But I don't think any of us are sitting here really thinking Højlund's going to go and get 25 goals for them this season. Rashford created a couple of opportunities on Sunday, but there's clearly a connection that's not right between him and even the fan base at the moment. Joshua Zirkzee, quite frankly, doesn't look like a Manchester United player to me. Despite his goal in the opener, it looks a bit awkward. It feels like, when they put the plaster with Weghorst a couple of years ago, it feels like it's done a bit like
Yeah, it
that.
just doesn't seem like he suits whatever their style of play is. This is the other thing. I just feel like for how long he's been there, I've never seen a sustained identity or like what is he trying to make them, in my opinion. I've
Uh, and that in terms of players bought in the market, he's obviously gone back to the Eredivisie or not. He's bought 2 more players this summer in De Ligt and Matsouari, who were part of that Ajax team and were on the pitch that night in the Champions League semi-final. Anthony, just complete failure. You look at the sort of deal, and the one player we haven't mentioned yet that United are very unfortunate to have lost is obviously Lenny Yoro,
yeah, of course.
which felt more like a club decision to me. Like, yeah, we're going to take, and that's the sort of signing United haven't made for years. And I think that's really encouraging. And to go back to your point about some of the stuff behind the scenes, yes. And I still think that Manchester United can have a very good football season. If Manchester United keep Ten Hag all season, like they're going to
What's a
finish
very good football season for Man United?
changing the manager and finishing top 4,
Sure.
they're very capable of doing that. Very
Do you think
capable.
they can finish top four with this manager?
When Tottenham sacked Nuno and put Antonio Conte in charge, Tottenham had no chance of finishing top four. That was in November. We're not even in September yet, really. So to look at United and say they couldn't finish top four, like no, you wouldn't, and you wouldn't even say they can't under Ten Hag because they did it under Ten Hag a couple of years ago because they were very consistent in beating the shit. But even in that same year, there was some really bad performances against top opponents. And they are clearly the one, I think. I'd be surprised if anyone outside the top eight disagreed with this. They are the one from within the top eight that you would want to play.
Oh, 100%. Yeah. I think you said that on the main pod, right? If you could pick one team from the top eight to play 38 times as them, and I was like on my walk nodding, like, yes, agree.
And because of the individual quality they've got, they can still beat you.
Yeah, yeah, of course. And
Like,
to
it's
be,
not unthinkable that an Arsenal could go to Manchester United and lose. I'm not suggesting that.
yeah,
This
and
is
to
the
be,
Premier League after all. But on a consistent basis, now they're one step forward and two steps back, like all the
yeah,
time.
and to give him credit, like, there have been a couple of individual games against Arsenal where tactically he's done smart things and made it difficult for us. I'd like, and you've seen what he's done at Ajax. I just think at Man United, he's had enough time there now where you can look at output, but you can also look at like the processes in place. And I just don't see anything that suggests to me he is going to be the man that sustainably takes them up the league table. And I think again, having because I think Man United and Arsenal probably have some parallels in the sense where Arsenal were a club that were a mid-table team and were trying to get back to the top. Man United aren't a mid-table team, but they're trying to get back to the top level. You need a very assertive character to go into that environment and manage from the bottom up. And I think that's what Mikel Arteta's done very well. I don't get that vibe from Ten Hag, and I don't know if this is true, but apparently, so I heard from like speculation when he was interviewed for Tottenham, Levy had some concerns about his like character or something, and
Yeah,
it
it didn't go well by all accounts.
yeah. So I don't know. I feel like there's enough speculation. There's enough in
That
what I've
said,
seen to
Nuno Espirito Santo apparently completely bombed in an Everton interview, and then we still employed him. So
fair point.
whatever.
Yeah,
Um, go on.
I don't yeah, just to summarize my thoughts, yeah, probably harsh, but it's honestly what I feel about him. As long as he's manager of Manchester United, I don't think they're a threat.
I think it's also worth saying, and this isn't a criticism of Manchester United fans, it's actually a compliment. They are probably the most loyal group actually in the country in terms of backing their managers. From a supporter base, they never called for Solskjaer to go. They never called for Mourinho to go. Yes, you'll get people calling for it online. I mean, the vocal support within the stadium. You never heard that, and I don't think that it'll ever get to that stage with Ten Hag either. I think it's ingrained in them from the Sir Alex Ferguson period of back your manager. David Moyes never called for him to go either. So I think they will continue to be supportive, but I think it's on a it's not going upwards. I don't. I'd be really surprised if you
And
said to me now, this will work out for Manchester United under Eric Ten Hag, and working out for Manchester United they should be challenging for league titles. Like I
yeah,
do not see that.
the
If
flip
United fans are happy to be this now and win a cup, win a League Cup or an FA Cup, crack on.
do you know
If that's what you feel like you are now, then to me, what you said, they're the biggest club in the country. You should be challenging for league titles. I do not see that happening under Eric Ten Hag. No way.
the reason I also want him to stay that long as long as possible with what they've done behind the scenes, if they get the next managerial appointment correct, I think this is a big claim. I think they'll be back very soon because I think there'll be smart decisions made strategically and with their commercial power. I know in this PSR world, everyone's handicapped to an extent, but I think they'll be on a quicker road back to where they're meant to be,
So with that in
unfortunately.
mind, how do you think Gareth Southgate will get on in the job?
Surely that's not actually going to happen.
Let's change topic.
Go on.
Let's talk some of the deadline day transfers. Injured. We mentioned Ugarte, and it's worth saying to add that in as well is all he's going to be really helpful, right? Ball winning monster. You know, he comes up with FB ref like top 99 percentile for ball winning. He's still a young player. That could be quite transformative. That was the one you and I highlighted a couple of weeks ago. Need a ball winning midfield player. They've gone and got it.
Hmm.
In fairness, again, decent acquisition for the football club. Um, Your thoughts first on Raheem Sterling. Let's start there, Clates.
I think in the context of what Arsenal needed and what was available on the market, I think it's a smart signing. So I, as an Arsenal fan, was quite vocal. I thought Arsenal needed a top class wide forward to power up the attacking group and give us a profile we lacked in games away at Bayern Munich, away at Man City, away at Villa last year, those sort of games where we really struggled to break teams down. Is Raheem Sterling necessarily that? No. But I don't look at any wide forward that moved this summer and think that was the player Arsenal could have got that raises the level. So I think in terms of reacting to what the market played, I think it's smart. We essentially replaced Reece Nelson's place in the squad with Raheem Sterling. And I think with that in mind, it's a very smart move. He can play left, right, possibly false nine in moments. Whether we see that in the North London derby with Jesus possibly out, no Declan Rice, I'm not sure. But in the context of everything, I think it's a very smart signing. And I wouldn't be surprised if he nails down that left wing spot at some point this season.
6.8 in FPL.
Yeah, I think there'll be a period this season where he's an interesting option.
Yeah, I think the Sterling and the Sancho deals, what is striking from most people is most Arsenal fans are okay with the Sterling signing. And it seems like most Chelsea fans actually are okay with the Jadon Sancho signing. That's despite the fact that a lot of Chelsea fans stop doing shit now. And yet, obviously, have still ended up with this window without signing number nine, which is quite interesting to me. But one interesting point on Sancho, I think going to Chelsea. And I think it's another one. There's been a lot made about the wide players. I don't think it's quite as people are playing it out like they've got 20 wingers and stuff. That's not the case. And Gary Mantle made a really good point actually on our Slack about it didn't have a profile player like Sancho to play on the right. And I thought about that afterwards and thought about this idea of Pedro Neto playing on the left and potentially Maresca wanting Chelsea's wide players to be a bit like Tottenham's to hit the byline rather than kind of this inverted stuff that we've all become so like used to. Neto is a player, if he's going to play on the left, he's not coming in field. Just push it out your feet and get wide. And when you think of the players that play on the right for Chelsea, your Palmers, if he plays there, Madueke's, they want to come inside, right? If João Felix did play in that position, he's not like a winger, neither's Nkunku. So I did think about that and thought, do you know what? He might play a bit more than people anticipate, actually. That's not to suggest those with Madueke and their FPL teams should shit themselves at this moment, but that might be an aspect of it to potentially keep an eye on. How do you think Nelson will get on at Fulham?
Don't know. And the reason I say that is I think with Nketiah to Palace, I've got more evidence that I've seen him play sustained minutes at Arsenal to know what I think will translate. With Nelson, I've only ever seen substitute appearances, so I think it's really hard to judge a player when it's only that. And Adama Traore obviously plays on the right there, so I don't know if he'll necessarily go in and take that shirt. In terms of what Fulham fans can expect, he's very technically secure. I think sometimes a little bit too safe in the final third. I think he can take more risks, but again, I don't know if that's just because he's only ever played substitute appearances. He doesn't want to make a mistake. He's very technically astute, like I said. He's very good dribbler, 1v1. I don't know, I think his decision making in the final third will be less frustrating than Adama Traore's, if I can say that. But whether he nails down that right wing spot or not, I'm not too sure, to be honest. I hope so from an Arsenal development perspective.
What about Eddie and Ketcher at Palace?
I really like this one. I've got a lot of time for Eddie. So I think when he came into the Arsenal team, we were in a period where we were going for Europa League, going for top four. So the levels were different to what they are now. And he stepped in and he contributed more than enough. I think in periods, did better than seasoned professionals like Lacazette at the time. And he's someone that I've just got a lot of time for him because he's never sulked. He's never moaned. He's just constantly, even in interviews in the All or Nothing documentary, always shown a mentality of wanting to improve himself. And I've got a lot of time for people like that. Fun fact, I actually see a physio for my own injury, and it's the same physio of Nketiah. So I hear a lot from him about him, and he invests a lot in his own personal development as well. And talking about the man, but the actual player as well. I think he's more of an all-round centre forward than people think. I think a lot of people have him as like a fox in the box, a bit of a poacher. Under Arteta, he developed a lot more of the kind of all-round link play centre forward role. is it the level for a Premier League challenging team? No, but with respect for a Palace, I think he'll really surprise people and do well there. I don't know if he'll play with Mateta or if they'll stick with just one up top, but I back him to make that shirt his own. And I don't know what his price is in FPL, but he's another one. I think he'll be an option at points.
Cheap. It's the 4.5 everyone wanted this time last year or the year before, wasn't it? But
Is he
not now.
4.5? Oh,
No, I'm saying he was like
oh
because that
yeah,
was last year or the year before. It was like if he didn't catch a moves on loan, everybody will have him. So forget about it. I mean, it's six, I think. I want to
sure.
say so. Certainly one to keep an eye on. Yeah, I mean, I'm interested in the dynamic there with Mateta because obviously very different types of players, and I think it does add the potential for them to play together with perhaps just Eze rather than two tens and Eze and Kamada, just Eze behind that front two, and you go, okay, that's a different looking Palace to what we were used to with Michael Olise in there last season, but a dynamic that could be nice. Them two
Yeah,
in front of Eze,
that sounds
yeah.
really nice.
I don't see that happening in the immediate. It might be something that develops time. I'm fairly sure that Nketiah has gone there to start football matches,
Of
I
course.
think. And I don't think Jean-Philippe Mateta thinks he's given that up either. So worth keeping an eye on, certainly. Palace did some other business. Also signed Maxence Lacroix, who was a player that Roy McLaughlin Dowd told us on Correspondent Week that they would sign
He did, yeah.
um, like a month ago. He's like, yeah, it will happen. I don't know when, but it's going to happen. He was certain of it. And they also got Trevor Chalobah in on loan, which is a really good pickup. I think Chelsea fans would probably speak best about that and saying, yeah, Palace have got a really good player brought in there who essentially will probably play the right side of the centre back of the back three.
Do you know, is there any obligation or option on Chalobah?
Um, I'm not sure actually, but he's in the last year of his contract anyway, so I presume
Oh,
probably he's a loan to an obligation.
okay. Yeah, I
He's
think that's a
probably
really
he's
nice
probably
one.
something that would benefit Chelsea for their books next year. Oh, who knows with that football club. Um, I watched last night just to add a little bit onto this. I watched Sky Sports News last night for the first time in I can't remember when, but I stuck it on last night. This is the sort of shit that happens during international breaks. I'll put Sky Sports News on, and actually, it was a really good little 5 minute interview on there with Steve Parish, the Crystal Palace chairman. Comes across really well, um, and he spoke about Mark Gay quite a bit, and he pretty openly said that once Chadi Riyad got injured in the Carabao Cup tie last midweek, that there was no way they could sell Gay. Like, he kind of basically said they were probably open to it, and he spoke really openly and honestly about completely understanding of not blocking a player's path. He's like, look, we've got to think about our football club first. Let Anderson go. We didn't want to let Gay go as well. And the other centre back they brought in got a knee ligament injury. Didn't want to take potentially what would have been the starting front three, but they're all gone.
Yeah.
Didn't want to be in that position, but also spoke quite emphatically on there was no way he was going to like massively stand in someone's way. So it sounded to me like there's probably been a conversation with like, Mark, you're not going now, but we will help you find the right move for you, be that in January or next summer, I would
Fair play.
think.
I'm gonna listen
He,
to that. That sounds good.
he also spoke about Ebe um, and a lot of us thought he would go, whether it was we knew that there was potentially some interest from Tottenham. And I think a lot of us assumed that Manchester City would activate whatever this release clause was. Then the FPL game week one deadline went, and it came out that night. The clause has expired. No one's activated it.
Did
And
he talk about that?
I'm sure people knew about the clause because the agent's going to know the clause is there. So he'd be like, look, if you want to buy my player, I suggest you get on with it and do it now. So obviously, then they didn't want to lose Eze. They wouldn't have been able to stop it if someone played the clause. He didn't speak about the clause at all. But I think with him, what was striking about it is that he was sitting there surprised that Eze was still a Crystal Palace player. I think it was basically saying that he was really surprised how little interest there was in him.
Oh wow.
It kind of suggested no one made a bid or anything. And he was sitting there like, I'm surprised he's still here, basically. So another one, he'll go when that interest is there. He's sitting there saying, he's like, oh, this guy should be playing in the Champions League, basically. What am I going to do to stop him? I don't want to deny him that. And he sold it really well, as in saying, like, look, we want to show like what we've done, Michael Olise, to make Palace a destination so that when we're selling with respect, we're selling now to the Champions League clubs so people can see the progression. And Palace as a football club has evolved from what was a yo-yo club to it's now past obviously 10 years being in the Premier League, and you just couldn't foresee them with some of the players they've got now being in any trouble. And I think a lot
No.
of us think they might even go on to be the kind of the best of the rest this year, and maybe even push for a Europa League or Europa Conference League place. Few more just to scan over, mainly from an FPL perspective. Oral Mangala's joined Everton. No, I'm not suggesting you buy Oral Mangala, but I know a lot of people are on Timo Robenham as their 4.5 midfielder. That will put some threat on that. So will obviously the return from injury of James Garner. That's probably not the 4.5 midfielder of choice at this moment if you are on wildcard. That's the only reason I mentioned that. Wolves have bought a new midfield player called Andre, who I'm quite tempted just to call Amadou permanently. Did you see Amadou Onana's t-shirt
I
for
saw the
Belgium?
t-shirt. Yeah, what a
Yeah, he
man.
was wearing a t-shirt saying "My name's not even Andre, mate," which is absolutely fantastic. And Onana's made a great start to his Villa career. Andre, we think, will become a first choice at Wolves. They've also bought another player who I'd completely missed his transfer, and I messaged you this morning and said, "Who is that?"
And I
Carlos
replied saying not a
Forbes.
clue, even though
Now,
we covered
Carlos
him.
Forbes turns out to be Carlos Borges, who's a player that you and I covered quite a bit last year because we thought he was going to go to West Ham United from Manchester City, young left winger who went to Ajax. He's joined Wolves on loan. There is a option to buy, we think, at the end of this season. I'm interested in that because he's a left winger by profile. And at the weekend, we were pretty surprised that Rodrigo Gomez didn't start for Wolves. So it might be that he's one that appears from nowhere and possibly becomes first choice quite quickly for Wolves.
Yeah, and even though
Um,
he's not pulled up any trees at Ajax, when we covered him last year, I think his profile seemed really exciting, and he obviously did bits for Man City in the youth division. So, yeah, definitely one to keep an eye on.
Amanda Brea's joined Everton on loan. We think he's injured to about November. It's a completely un-Everton thing to do. And I just wanted to touch finally on Maxwell Cornet, who's joined Southampton
I really like him as a player.
on loan from West Ham. He's barely played for West Ham. He's a talented player who's obviously had injury issues. If you can find the player that was at Burnley, there is clearly a footballer there. But I found it more from the fantasy aspect. I found it quite interesting that they signed Cornet and they've also re-signed Ryan Fraser. Now they're wide players, which is quite against what we've seen from Southampton so far this season. Back three and split central forwards, basically.
I mean, there's a change of system coming then.
Could be. Yeah, could be. And the unlucky person in all of that might be Taylor Harwood-Bellis, as I said on Monday.
Yep.
Okay. Should we finish with a bit of on this day?
Go on. What Arsenal misery have you got for me this week?
No, not Arsenal misery, mate. I'm gonna talk to you about a man with a 100% managerial record.
I should know this. I feel like this guy became a bit of a meme, and his name's escaped me. Who is it?
I don't know who you're thinking of, but
Oh,
it's not that.
oh okay, never
although,
mind.
although, yeah, he became a bit of a meme after he was found out by an undercover reporter for wanting to take money underneath the
Sam
table in a
Allardyce.
hotel. It is 8 years to the day since Sam Allardyce's only appearance as England manager when England won 1-0 in Slovakia. A record that presumably will never be equaled. Big Sam holds a 100% record as England manager, never conceding a goal. The reason it was only one game, I believe, because that's unusual in itself for England to have an international bat and only play one game, so they didn't have a friendly or anything. I think he decided that he wanted additional training time as it was him taking over the job rather than having another game. I think now they probably would have been forced to arrange another game actually, rather than not have one at all. And I'm sure the FA would just go for the money now in any case as well. This was a magnificent paint dry operation in Slovakia. England had drawn with Slovakia in the Euros previously, 0-0 in a largely forgettable game. And this one was equally so. England did not have a shot on target until the 65th minute. And that was from Wayne Rooney, a player who, to sum up Allardyce's reign, said after the game, yeah, he played deeper than I thought he would. You're not the fucking manager, mate.
Yeah, was that not your instruction?
I told you we was on a really bad low ebb after Euro 2016, mate. Slovakia had one shot in the whole game. The game is memorable for two reasons. One, a somewhat idiotic red card for former Liverpool defender Martin Skrtel, who it's the only thing I remember from the game. He committed so many fouls. He'd been booked for an elbow on Harry Kane in the first half. And then the second half went in for a tackle behind him. Free kicks given. And then he makes out he's trying to win the ball. He just completely stamps down on like Kane's ankle.
Oh, whoa.
So I don't know if that was a straight red or a second yellow, but it was like a double whammy. You're definitely going. And England massively laboured to create a big chance. It eventually came with 5 minutes to go, with the goal scored by Adam Lallana, who was England's best player on the day. A really scrambled effort that the goalkeeper probably should have done better with, created by a little bit of good play on the wide area from Danny Rose, who was, of course, one of the five Tottenham players in this squad at the time. So Kyle Walker, Danny Rose, Eric Dyer, Harry Kane all started. And
Was
actually
Delhi in that squad?
England only started playing well towards the end of this game when Delhi came on in the final 10 minutes or so. Didn't start. The lineup for the record: Joe Hart, Kyle Walker, Gary Cahill, John Stones, Danny Rose, Henderson and Dyer, Sterling, Rooney, Lallana, and Kane.
It's a good team.
Subs bench includes one player who plays for another international team. Any guesses? And he's still a Premier League player.
I'm awful at stuff like this. I'm just gonna phone a friend. You're my friend, James. Who is it?
Jamaican.
Mikel Antonio?
Yes.
Oh, wow.
Unused substitute for England, along with Danny Drinkwater, Nathaniel Klein, Chris Smalling, who I see is a player who's just moved to Saudi Arabia with some others, Jamie Vardy unused, Phil Jagielka, Southampton's Alex McCarthy is in the squad, Theo Walcott and Daniel Sturridge were England's other used substitutes on the day. So if you watch England this week and you think it's shit, just remember this from 8 years ago was not great either. And who knows, if that undercover sting hadn't happened against Big Sam, maybe we would never have had the glorious 8 years of near misses that we had under Gareth Southgate, which everyone obviously wanted to get rid of. We wish Lee Carsley the very best for his opening weekend of England. I suspect we've got about 6 years of him to come, so might as well get behind it and enjoy it. I did say I'd ask you a trivia question on transfers, actually, before we finish as well.
Yeah, go on.
Who was the most expensive signing by a Premier League club in this window?
In this window? I'm gonna go with someone from West Ham. Max
I'll save you the time and say no.
Oh.
But I want you to think about this more, because last year we had Declan Rice, Moises Caicedo, we had madness, right?
There's been no like market mover transfer, has there? This is shocking audio, isn't it?
Transferred between two Premier League clubs. As far as I'm aware, this is the most expensive one. Hopefully scores the winning goal in 11 days.
No, it says Tottenham. Who have you guys signed?
All right, that's underplaying it quite a bit, Clates.
Oh, flipping hell, Solanke, isn't it?
As far as I'm aware, that's the most expensive sign of any Premier League club in this window.
To be fair, that is a fair outlay, wasn't it? What was it, like 65?
Yeah, of course it was. But what I'm saying is, last summer we was having Rice and Caicedo and stuff like that. When you look at the deals done, I think to come full circle back to the Leicester point and PSR and stuff like that, I think the Premier League, we shouldn't necessarily, but the Premier League will look at the business done by the top clubs in this window and I think have concern. Because who have they bought? We said about City. You bought Calafiori?
Yeah, it was like 35 mil, I think.
Yeah, and I realise you're not going to buy a Declan Rice, to spend that outlay on one player every single year. We completely get that. United have obviously brought in Euro, Ugarte. I'm talking about players from the outside. It's fine. Chelsea is its own podcast. I get that. But again, they haven't spent like a Casado this year, right? And actually, I guess the big one there is probably Neto. And that's also it's taken from within the league, much like Tottenham took Solanke. Bournemouth spent decent on Evan Nilsson. Um, Villa's big signing was also from within the league in Onana, who's really joined the league from the outside
Yeah,
as a
hasn't
difference
been in.
maker. No, I think that will be alarming to the Premier League. It's another reason why PSR will hit the bin.
We shall see. Lovely stuff.
Cheers, Clates. Much love. And continuing the theme of PSR, tomorrow's Clash of Correspondents is Aston Villa versus Everton with Lee Jackson and Sean Norton. I'm sure Sean will have no opinions on what's happening with Leicester whatsoever because he'll be too busy criticising Everton's on-field performances at the moment. Season say cheers, Clates. Be nice to each other, everyone. Cue music, please. Man child.